name's not numbers, Helen
My
Rosenstark.
name is Helen Rosenstark.
Where and when were you born?
I was born in Poland, and the name of the town is Częstochowa, and I was born in July 16, 1938.
Tell me about your family.
My family was, my parents owned a store in Poland. They owned a factory, actually, of hospital beds. And we lived, the town was a large town, was not a little town, it was a large town. I was 4 years old. I mean, in 1942, I was 4 years old. Before that, we lived comfortably, but they made a ghetto I think 1939, 1940, they separated us and we had to stay in the ghetto. We had to have special permission to go out if we wanted to go someplace, either go by train to visit family. We had to get permission. And we had to stay in that strictly ghetto. That's where they put all the Jews together.
Before your family was separated, how religious was your family?
My family is quite religious, yes.
Tell me about Shabbos in your family.
Well, it was a regular Shabbos. We lived in we lived actually at my grandmother's house, and was a regular. I mean, I don't remember much about the Shabbos really. I was much too young. It was my family is quite Orthodox. My family is quite. Well, the town was a large town. There was separate. There was a Jewish quarters, which called the ghetto. There was also, in that town it was a very religious town, a Catholic town. They had the biggest church, I think, in Poland. They called it Black Madonna. It was there, and there were they had all kinds of ceremonies. The Gentile people going through the streets, but it was a Catholic town.
Were there a lot of Jewish people or
Yes, there was a tremendous Jewish population. Yes.
Tell us about your family history.
My family, my mother was one of 4 children. Her mother passed away when she was 14, and she was brought up by her grandmother. My mother was educated. She went what's called a gymnasia, which was like a college really. She was educated, and then I guess it was a shidduch. They made my father. They got married, and then they opened up a factory in Poland. And everybody got scared, and we were much more restricted to go out or to do things. They took away right away the factory that we had. They took right away, and we had scarce the food. There was practically no food anymore. The groceries, whatever it was closed. They were hoarding things. That's why I had to go out anytime they wanted. There was restriction in the evening. I think my mother told me by 7, 8 o'clock they were not allowed to leave their houses. There was shortage of food, and they were beating people up in the streets. That's what I was told. They were shipping people away in the house, and they were calling all the men out to leave the houses and to come to the square. So my father didn't really know what's going to happen. So he told my mother, we lived in a house where there was a cellar underneath the floor. There was a cellar, and over the floor there was a carpet, and there was a table there. So nobody knew there was really a cellar. So my father told my mother she should go down to the cellar. He gave her they took some food along. They didn't think it's going to be a long time. They thought it's going to be a very short time. And we went down to the cellar, and they called everybody out. Well, nobody came back, and we were in the cellar for I don't know, for a day or 2 days, whatever. It was dark. We had a kerosene lamp they had. And my mother had a friend from the same building that lived in the same building who had a boy. He was a little bit older than me, and they went down to the basement, and they heard on top. They heard the footsteps, the boots from the Germans. They heard them on top, so they knew they were in the house. And then we stayed there maybe 2 days, whatever, 2 or 3 days we stayed. And it was quiet one day. We didn't hear anything. We had no food anymore. So my mother decided we can't stay here, otherwise we're going to just die. So she said we have to get out. So it was quiet one night, and she just opened up the latch, whatever there was, and we snuck out. We lived in the town. There was one side, there was a Jewish side, and one town was a Polish side, where the Poles lived. So it was still like, it was daybreak when we got out, and we crossed over to the Polish side. And then my mother didn't know what to do, but they used to do business with some Polish people. So she had the addresses, so she stopped. She said, maybe they will help us. So she stopped and she knocked at the doors, and they wouldn't talk. They shoved us away. They didn't want to know us. And they reported to the Germans that there were Jews running around this place. So they started to hunt us. So we had to hide, and we were hiding. We didn't have any clothes. We had whatever we took, whatever we were able to take, that's what we took. We had nothing. So we started to hide in the fields. We had no food anymore. So that time was like in the fall. So we're picking potatoes in the fields, carrots, potatoes, whatever there was in the fields. So people were working in the fields. So we made believe like we were part of the workers while they were looking for us. And we were eating carrots, we were eating raw potatoes and at night we had no place where to sleep, so there were bushes. We used to hide behind the bushes. We used to sleep. And this is going on like a few days. It wasn't winter yet, wasn't cold yet. And then my mother met somebody, a Polak, who felt sorry for us. So he said he's going to check. He says, just check what's going on in town. So he took us, he had a barn. It was a young Polish guy, and he took us into the barn, and he didn't want his parents to know. And he brought us some food, brought us some bread, whatever. And he says he's going to check what's going on in town. And we slept over there in the barn. And he came back and he says, yes, he saw people. He must have got into the town. I don't know where the camp is at. And he says, yes, there are Jews there. And he's going to drive us over with his wagon and drop us off in town. So he gave us some food and he dropped us off in town. And we started walking. My mother was afraid to go to the camp. She wanted to see herself what's going on there. So she didn't know what to do. So she said to this other woman, her friend, with the boys, we were just the four of us, we were. She says, you know, I'm gonna check out, they're both gonna check out what's going on in camp, and they're gonna come back for us. So she didn't know where to leave us. So she left us in a doorway someplace, and she said she's gonna be back. Of course, as a child, I cried, you know. And she went into town, and we were in the town. We were outside, like in the street. We didn't know what to do. She didn't come back right away. We started wondering. We didn't know what to do. We really didn't know what to do.
Where was your father?
My father was in camp. They took him away. My father, they took away right away when they had this election. Right in the beginning, they took him away. We didn't see my father anymore.
Did you get to say goodbye to him?
No. No. He thought he's going to be back. He thought they're going to make a selection, they're going to come back. He didn't know they're going to shove him right away, send him away. So when, so my mother went away. So my mother went away. We were in the street just wandering around. We didn't know what to do. We were starving, we were hungry, we had no food, we had nothing. Nobody paid attention even. The boy was, I think, he wasn't much older than me. He was maybe a year or 2 years older, that's all he was. Maybe he was 5 or 6, maybe he was. So, all of a sudden, we walking in the street, we didn't know where we were walking. We see a bunch of people, you know, in a row surrounded by these German soldiers. They were lined up walking down the street. And I see my mother. I noticed my mother in the line, and I started screaming. And I don't know how she snuck out from the line. It was just like a miracle from God, because they could have killed her on the spot. She just, I don't know, somebody didn't see, she just snuck out from the line. Unbelievable. And she took us by the hand, and she didn't know where to go. She had no idea where to go. We was hungry. She had no money, nothing.
What was she doing on that line? What was that
Because
line?
they were taking her to another camp. There were 2 camps in that town, or 2 or 3 camps in this town.
So
They
when
were
she
working.
went to look at the camp, they
No,
snatched
when she went back, she went to camp to see what's going on, and she couldn't get out anymore. So then they probably were taking her to another camp. They were taking her. So we're going through the town. They were marching them through with the soldiers, with on all sides. It was like, Hashamayim, like they say, that she was able to get out. And she took us by the hand. She didn't know what to do. She had nothing. We were wondering, and all of a sudden, she sees this woman dressed in black. She's walking down the street, a Catholic woman, never saw her in her life. She just went in front of her and started begging to take the children. Not her, she said, just take my children. She had no money. I guess the woman felt sorry. She was a devout Catholic, and she gave us the address. We were full of lice, because we were wandering around. We haven't washed, we haven't done anything. We had no change of underwear, we had nothing. So this woman, I guess, felt sorry for her, and she gave her the address, where to take her. So my mother brought us to this woman, and it was, the woman said to take her to the attic, to leave us at the attic. So she left us there. Of course, we cried, and she said she's going to buy some food, she said, and she left, and she never came back. And the woman came back. She shaved off our hair, she cleaned us off, and she took us down to her apartment. And she kept us there. And we used to go to church. She took us every morning. She used to go very early to church. We weren't allowed to really to go out, because the people knew that she had no children. She had a grown-up son, but she had no children, and they knew. So she told them that her niece was very sick, and she took her children. So we stayed with her. She washed us up, she cleaned us up, she shaved our hair off, everything, and we stayed there. And we used to go every morning. We weren't allowed really to go out, because she was afraid for us to go out, especially there was a boy there too. So we used to go like very early in the morning. We used to go to church. Every morning we learned all the prayers. We knew everything. We had no toys. I don't know how we played. I don't remember what we did. I remember certain things as I got older. She put a bed in the kitchen, and she covered the side. She covered up with a credenza, like with a china closet. She separated it. We had no toys. I don't know how we played, what we did. I have no idea. I don't remember.
Okay, we're gonna take a break.
We got up in the morning. She gave us breakfast. We had one bed. We slept together in one bed. We had no toys. I don't remember what we really did do all day. I don't remember. But we stayed all day home most of the time. And whenever she went, only to church we went. We didn't go out like this. And we learned all the prayers.
How did you feel going to church since you're Jewish?
I didn't know any difference.
Oh, okay.
Or even when she took me back, I didn't want to go back with her, and it took my mother. I used to sneak out. I used to go to church still. I used to sneak out. Yes, I did sneak out.
Do you remember, I'm not gonna ask you to say them, but do you remember still the prayer?
So the woman said to me, "Your mother is here." I says, "I don't have a mother. My mother was killed by the Germans."
That's what you said?
That's what I said. I was 7 years old.
And that's what you really thought?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, was there like, in this Catholic woman's house, was there an upstairs, down? Oh yeah, you said there was an attic.
There was an attic. There were other people living in that house too. It was like you call it today, like a 3-family or 4-family house, whatever it was.
So describe the moment when your mother came.
Quite a long time to convince me to go to her house. If she took me to her house, she lived, after she was liberated, she lived with a bunch of women because my father wasn't around. My father was killed. So she took me to the house, but I refused to be with her. She had to bring me back to her woman every day. She had to bring me. It took a while till I got used to her. I used to see, this I remember, it was Palm Sunday. I wanted a palm. I laid on the floor, I wanted a palm.
Wow. How did your mother survive the war?
How did your mother survive the war?
My mother worked in a labor camp. Well, both of them. My father, they met again in the camp, my mother and my father. And they were working. And she worked in a munition factory, she worked. She was guns, whatever she was. And they very scarce, food was very scarce. She was walking around in those wooden shoes, she was walking around. She survived, she was a strong woman, she really survived. None of our family survived, nobody.
You were an only child?
I was an only child.
Okay. We're gonna switch to the next. And agreed to take you and that other boy.
Yeah, she was very religious. She said she's doing it for God, she said.
So-
Oh, yes, the boy.
Okay.
After.
Hold on, yeah.
They were like airplanes flying above us. So we were liberated by the Russians, we were liberated. So there were airplanes flying, and they said the war is over. The Russians are here, the war is over. That's how we found out.
Where did you go after the war ended?
With the war, we lived in the same town. My mother was liberated. There was a camp that was in the same town, was liberated. My mother came back. She knew where I was because she brought me there. I have not seen my mother the whole time. The whole time I was there, I have not seen my mother. My mother came back. Of course, I didn't recognize my mother. And she wanted to take me. I didn't want to go with her. This is my home. I just refused to go with her. The woman was, she was not my mother. I didn't call her mother, I called her aunt, I called her. And I never questioned, I don't know why I never questioned why my mother is. I never questioned, I don't know why. Unbelievable. And my mother came back after the war and she wanted to take me. I refused to go with her. So she took me she didn't want to force me, so she took me for the day or for a couple of hours and she brought me back.
Was it hard to get back into your daily life?
Yes, it was hard. Yes.
How did you get to America?
Oh, we had no family at all. First of all, my mother remarried. My father was killed during the war, and my mother remarried. She knew them from before the war hit my father, and she remarried. And we decided we had to. Everybody was thinking of going to Israel, really, but I don't know. Somehow we wound up going to. We came through the United Hire Services. We came because we had no family. We were not sponsored. We had no sponsors.
So
Sponsored by the Hayas. They took us. First we lived in Germany for a while. We lived. After the war, my mother remarried, and because we didn't come to United States in 1952. So we lived in a small little town in Germany. I had two sisters were born, and I started going to a German school. And one day my mother walks in and I'm standing there and praying with everybody. Mother says, "This is not for me, I'm going back." I was the only Jewish girl in town. And all my friends were non-Jews. She says, "This is not, we have to get out." So we had to move. So we went to the town, to Dachau we lived. And my father, which was 20 minutes from Munich, because there was a school, a Jewish school in Munich. So my mother figured she's going to send me to the school. So my father opened up a little kiosk. There was like a Jewish street where they were selling, cigarettes, whatever they were selling. People were coming in. There were a lot of people, and they put me into the school, into the Jewish school, and that's how I started really, having some little friends, Jewish friends. And I used to go home. We didn't live there, so I made friends. So I stayed by the friend till my father was able to go back to Dachau, and I used to go with him back to Dachau. I used to go with him in the morning and come back at night. Boat. For 14 days we were on the on the ocean, very sick. My mother had 2 children already. I have 2 sisters. One was a year old. One was a year old, one was 3. They put me down with all the children downstairs in where the soldiers used to be, was a military boat.
Was there any food on the boat?
Yes. We came through the Hayat, through the Americans, and they fed us already. We had everything. Ellis Island was closed already. We came to the first thing when we came to America, we came on Friday. So they put us up in a hotel because it was Shabbos. So we stayed in a hotel overnight. Then they put us up in the Hayas, which was in Manhattan. And my father got a job right away and found a job. And we found a one-bedroom apartment to go to Beis Yaakov. That's what she wanted.
So you went from praying
From
to Beis Yaakov.
Yeah.
So the Beis Yaakov.
In Williamsburg. Yeah.
How did you adjust to that Jewish school?
I adjusted pretty good because I knew already I was Jewish, and I made friends. I adjusted pretty good. Well, Beis Yaakov helped my stepfather helped me a lot. He was very frum, and he really taught me a lot.
Well, how did he teach you? Did he have classes with you?
No, he would teach me how to read. I went to school, and then he taught me how to read.
What happened to the boy?
Oh. I was not in touch with him at all. And then as I grew older, I said to myself, I would like to meet him. So my mother wrote away to this woman for the address of his mother. His father didn't survive, his mother survived. They lived, I don't remember, they lived someplace upstate. And so my mother wrote, she remarried, his mother remarried, she lost his father also. And my mother I wrote a letter, the woman gave me, mother wrote a letter to her, and then the sister wrote me back. He had a half a sister. She wrote me back, and she wrote me back. I wrote to her a letter, and she wrote that I would like to. They had the Hidden Children Conference in Manhattan. There was in 50-something street in a hotel. So I said to myself, I would like to go, and I would like to meet him. I haven't seen him in so many years. I would like to meet him. So I wrote a letter to the sister that I would, she gave me the address of the boy, that I wrote him a letter. He never replied. The sister replied to me, and she says that he married a non-Jewish girl, he has nothing to do with Judaism, and he never wrote me back.
Wow.
I mean, I came back to Judaism, which I'm happy, I'm back to normal, like they call it. And I have a wonderful family, and which I'm very grateful, which I guess I was too young to understand it really, but I'm grateful that I survived, and I have this wonderful family. And, I had a father, I had a mother, even though I don't remember, I have no pictures of my father, I have no idea what he looked like, my real father, but my father was very good to me, my stepfather, and he brought me up.
My generation.
Well, I hope you never go through what I went through. That's really what I hope so. You should all have a happy and good life. I took my granddaughter with me. I went at the March of the Living. I wanted to see what's going, because I'd never seen it before. And I was just, das Judenmädel mit die schwarze Locken. I used to have black hair, curls, and they used to call me, I was the only child, they called me das Juden, that means you the Jewish girl with the black hair. They used to call me. What really happened. That's what I really should learn something from it, and they should, because there's so many denials that people denying that the Holocaust was ever there. So I think they should know what happened, because eventually we're all going to be gone. I'm proud of my family, very proud of my family. I never thought I would have a family like this, from and everything. Yeah. Very proud. Woman, this is the woman that saved me, and this is her family.